just got the brand new 15-inch M2 MacBook Air. Let's unbox it. Ooh, that's some clever packaging. Now I got the base model MacBook Air just because I wanted to see how well the base model performs against my 14-inch M1 Max MacBook Pro. All right, here's the MacBook itself. You got your charging cable, got your manual, and your 30-watt charger. Now I probably should have gotten the 70-watt charger so that you can charge the MacBook faster, but at least with the 30-watt charger, you have dual USB-C ports, so that's cool. All right, now on to the MacBook Air itself. Oh, that's really thin. Ooh, that's solid. That's a solid MacBook. Now I got the silver color just because I just wanted to get the silver color, but looking at my other friends' videos, that gold color looks really nice. But hey, silver looks nice as well. Just going around the computer, on the left side is your MagSafe power port, as well as 2 USB-C ports. And on the other side is your headphone jack. All right, now let's take out my 14-inch M1 Max MacBook Pro and put it side by side against the new 15-inch M2 MacBook Air. And there it is, side by side. Obviously a little bit bigger than the 14-inch MacBook Pro, but the MacBook Pro is definitely thicker. And just holding each computer, I mean, the MacBook Pro is of course heavier. MacBook Air obviously is lighter, not as light as previous MacBook Airs. Like I got my wife the 13-inch M1 MacBook Air, that's really light. 15 inch is obviously gonna be a little bit heavier. And so being that it's a bigger computer, of course it's gonna be a little bit heavier. Now comparing the ports again, on one side of the MacBook Air, you have 2 USB-C ports, where with the MacBook Pro, you get 2 on one side, you get 1 on the other side, but you have the additional SD card slot, HDMI port, and the headphone jack. I mean, it's a MacBook Pro, it's gonna do MacBook Pro things. They're both so pretty though, just so pretty. All right, let's open them up. All right, before we go deep into the MacBook Air, let's just take a look at the layout between both laptops. Here's the MacBook Air, here's the MacBook Pro. With the MacBook Pro, you have the black background where the keyboard is. With the MacBook Air, you do not. You do have a bigger trackpad with the new M2 MacBook Air. It's definitely much smaller with the MacBook Pro. That is a little bit of a problem for me, especially when I try to edit videos and photos when I travel. Like the trackpad is just too small of a space. I usually bring a mouse anyway, and it's just much better to use because the trackpad is so small with the MacBook Pro, but I wish I had this big old trackpad. This is really nice. Same Touch ID, same ugly notch. Sorry, I hate the notch. It just looks so ugly. But there are no speaker grills on the M2 MacBook Air, where with the 14-inch M1 Max MacBook Pro has these very slim speaker grills. And so which is louder? Probably the MacBook Pro, but we'll have to find out later. But with the screen, the bezels are a little bit slimmer on the MacBook Pro. I keep seeing the notch. I don't know why people like the notch. It doesn't make any sense to me. And looking at both these computers with the screens flipped up, I do love the bigger screen real estate with the MacBook Air. Definitely gonna be better for editing videos and photos, where sometimes I would struggle with the smaller screen of the 14-inch MacBook Pro. I mean, I don't know, I think both are gonna have their pros and cons when it comes to traveling. It's just that the MacBook Air doesn't seem like a light laptop to travel with, you know what I mean? But let's go ahead and set up the MacBook Air so that we can do some simple comparisons between the two laptops. Ooh, typing on the MacBook Air is nice. Seems kind of smoother when you press down on the keys, where with the MacBook Pro, you hear more of a clicky sound. Huh, it's kind of hard to explain. This feels like you're pushing down on a pillow. This feels like you're not. That's a terrible analogy. I'm sorry, just forget what I just said. All right, real quick, let's just do some practical tests with both these computers. I'm gonna transfer some files from my SSD to each of the laptops, and we'll time it out and see which computer transfers the files faster. Oh, and by the way, I'm not gonna do a deep dive tech comparison between these two laptops. There are far better people that do a better job than I ever will. We got Marquez, Justine, Tech Me Out, Crystal, Max, Vadim. Those are the creators that you're gonna wanna watch if you want a deep dive analysis between these new Mac computers. But for me, we're just gonna do some very practical tests. All right, let's go and transfer that video file. Let's do this one. Let's do my Yosemite video. This one is a 4 GB video file. Let's pull up the stopwatch. Go ahead and transfer it in 3, 2, 1, go. All right. Okay, so that took about 6 seconds to transfer. Ooh, let's go ahead and transfer the whole project, which is about 170 gigs. All right, here we go, 170 gigs, transferring to the desktop in 3, 2, 1, go. Now while that's transferring over, I should probably disclose that the base model M2 MacBook Air is gonna run a little slower because of the storage size. From all the other videos that I've seen, it seems like the higher capacity versions tend to perform better when it comes to transfer speeds. I don't know for sure, that's just what I've been seeing on the internet. And so again, definitely check out those other creators if you want to know for sure. Here we go, almost. All right, so 8 minutes and 23 seconds. Cool, okay, so now let's go ahead and do the same thing with the 14-inch M1 Max MacBook Pro. Now that's interesting. I tried to eject the SSD and it kind of took a little bit longer than it should have. Okay, let's go ahead and drop that same video file from the SSD to the desktop. And let's transfer in 3, 2, 1, here we go. Okay, just over 6 seconds. All right, so just a little bit faster than the MacBook Air when transferring that specific video file, but now let's transfer the entire video project onto the desktop. Here we go, in 3, 2, 1, go. It looks like it's actually going pretty quick. I think the M1 Max is gonna beat the M2 MacBook Air. Okay, so that finished at around 3 minutes and 44 seconds. So definitely way faster than the M2 MacBook Air. And then for funsies, let's just do a disk speed test by using the Blackmagic speed test. Okay, here we go in 3, 2, 1, go. Whoa. My MacBook Pro is performing way faster than the MacBook Air. The MacBook Air is running like a, it looks like it's running about 980 megabytes per second, where with the M1 Max MacBook Pro, the write speed is running at, so where is it? Just over 4,000 megabytes per second, and the read speed is just under 5,000 megabytes per second. So huge, huge difference in terms of speed. Okay, so here we go. Here's a better result. So for the M2 MacBook Air, the write speed is at 1,215 megabytes per second, so 1,215. The read speed is 984 megabytes per second. And with the MacBook Pro, we've got 5,430 megabytes per second for the write speed. And for the read speed, it's 5,145 megabytes per second. So yeah, my 14-inch MacBook Pro is definitely kicking the M2 MacBook Air's butt. Let's go ahead and compare both the speakers between the two laptops. Let's try the M2 MacBook Air first. There have been very few moments in my life where my breath has been completely taken away, and experiencing Yosemite Firefall for the very first time was one of those moments. Okay, so that was on full blast. Let's try the same video with the MacBook Pro. There have been very few moments in my life where my breath has been completely taken away, and experiencing Yosemite Firefall for the very first time was one of those moments. Huh, I don't know which one was louder. Let's play both at the same time. Here we go. There have been very few moments in my life where my breath has been completely taken away, and experiencing Yosemite Firefall for the very first time was one of those moments. Wow, the speakers in the MacBook Air was very impressive. It sounded very similar to the MacBook Pro. I don't know which one is better. Oh wow, I don't know, that was cool. And that's kind of surprising because I don't see any speaker grills on the MacBook Air. And so if you kind of wanted to know if the audio sounded good on the MacBook Air, it sounds incredible. And then the final thing that I wanted to test and compare between both these computers is to see how well I can edit and export videos in Premiere Pro. All right, let's open up that Yosemite project. Oh, by the way, if you haven't seen my Yosemite video, you should probably watch it. It's pretty good. All right, just scrubbing through my timeline. All right. Has been completely taken away and experienced this phenomenon. And if you don't know what Yosemite Firefall is, it's a rare moment that happens just for a few weeks in February. All right, playback is looking really good. Let's go ahead and stack a bunch of video layers filled with LUTs and effects and just try our best to bog the computer down. Let's just duplicate all that. Let's duplicate this. Let's duplicate all that again. Okay, we got 10 layers, 10 video layers. All right, let's go play back. And when I was planning the trip, I haven't found any video clearly explaining exactly what to do, how to get to Yosemite, where to stay in Yosemite. That didn't lag at all. That's very impressive. Now let's go ahead and export this video, see how long that takes. We will export a 4K video file, send that to Media Encoder, and let's time it. 3, 2, 1, start. Okay, place that here. Oh, and by the way, this is a 14-minute video that we're exporting, and do you hear the fans already? Like, my MacBook Pro is like going into high gear, like it's using so much power. Okay, so that stopped the clock at 5 minutes and 55 seconds. I stopped a little bit late, so it should be like 5:54. But that is the time exporting a 14-minute 4K video on the M1 Max MacBook Pro. Now let's open up the same project with the M2 MacBook Air. It's kind of taking a long time to open up, not gonna lie. Like, it's loading up the project much slower than the MacBook Pro. I mean, I get that it's like the base model and only has like 8 gigs of RAM and 256 gigs of storage, but still, it's supposed to be an M2. All right, project is finally open. Let's go ahead and scrub through. All right, let's go ahead and do a playback. There have been very few moments in my life where my breath has been completely taken away in experiencing Yosemite Firefall for the very first time. Okay, playback looks great. Let's go ahead and play a section and add a bunch of video layers. Let's duplicate that, duplicate that. All right, let's go, let's play back in 3, 2, 1. Planning the trip, I haven't found any video clearly explaining exactly what to do, how to get... It's definitely lagging. It can't handle 10 video layers. All right, calm down, calm down. And now let's export this entire project in 4K to our desktop using Media Encoder. All right, ready to export. Let's get our stopwatch and let's go ahead and let's begin. 3, 2, 1, go. I have a feeling that it's gonna take a while. It's gonna take a while. Okay, so it finished rendering at 16 minutes and 22 seconds. That is longer than the actual video itself. Not good. Very disappointing. All right, so I think I've seen all that I needed to see. And let's just start with some pros and cons with the 15-inch M2 MacBook Air. Pros, I love the bigger screen real estate. Obviously a lot better to edit videos and photos. It's great to see. I love the bigger trackpad, again, for the same reasons. And I also love how loud this computer is, especially compared to the 14-inch M1 Max MacBook Pro. Like, even though there were no speaker grills, it was loud, like equally as loud as the MacBook Pro. Battery life is definitely a huge plus, 18 hours, really great for travel. Although I do recommend getting the 70-watt charger instead of the 30-watt charger. Otherwise, you'll end up charging this computer for a long time. And so yeah, if you plan on getting the M2 MacBook Air, definitely get the 70-watt charger. And those are pretty much all the things that I like better about the M2 MacBook Air over my M1 Max MacBook Pro. Now, the downsides. The lack of ports. Obviously, this is a MacBook Air. It's not gonna have all the ports like you would find in a MacBook Pro, but because I travel a lot, like I use all these ports all the time. And so for someone like me, someone who travels and creates content all the time, it doesn't really do me any favors not having enough ports with the MacBook Air. Another thing I'm not a fan of is the lack of an SD card. And if the MacBook Air is meant for travel, you're gonna need an SD card. Like, that's kind of important. Also, a little disappointed in the weight with the MacBook Air. Like, yeah, sure, it's light, but not that much lighter than my MacBook Pro. I mean, well, yeah, this is definitely pretty hefty, but I honestly don't think I'll tell the difference if I place this MacBook Air in my backpack filled with heavy camera gear or this MacBook Pro. Like, I think it'll feel roughly the same for me. Another thing I'm not a big fan of is the read and write speeds. It's definitely not as fast as my M1 Max MacBook Pro, although I am curious to see how faster the upgraded version of the MacBook Air performs, you know, like if I got the 1 terabyte version, I don't know. But with the base model as is, I just don't think it's fast enough for me. And the last thing that I'm not a big fan of is the video editing and rendering. Like, it took a long time, like a long time. And when I'm working with deadlines, like, I need to render videos fast. And so in conclusion, my final thoughts, overall, I think the M2 MacBook Air is great and it will satisfy a lot of people, like probably 60% of the population out there, like especially if you're doing email, social media, some light photo editing, like this computer is for you. Definitely upgrade to the 1 terabyte version at least. But if you edit a lot of videos and you have deadlines and you're a solo content creator working by yourself with deadlines, I don't know if I can recommend this computer. Like, I still love my 14-inch M1 Max MacBook Pro. It still kicks butt. And because of this little test, I think I'm gonna keep my MacBook Pro for as long as I can because it's such a workhorse and does the job. But as far as the 15-inch M2 MacBook Air, that's gonna be a no for me, dog.